Mr. Confidence returns to save fighting again. Call your grandma. Nanny, we did it. Watch and pay me. You fat Irish prick. You don't have my money. I put your brain to sleep. Who's that? What's that about? Who's he talking about? C is in the casinos after. The Mac loves yous all. I got love for yous. It's an it's an honor. It's light work. It's easy. For life and eternity, it's McGregor. How drunk was he when he wrote this? I do this fight game easy peasy. The sound of my shots off the head go bing in green dot laser form. Okay. Well, I really hope he is actually back. I hope it's true. It'd be fun to see him fight a lot of times.
It'd be a lot of fun.
Greatest personality the sport's ever known.
That's right.
There's no one even close. I mean, he's the most dynamic personality the sport's ever known.
And he was, for a time there, just such an unbelievable fighter. I mean, he was it was incredible what he was doing.
The Eddie Alvarez fight.
Oh, yeah. I was there.
The master of good timing, the beneficiary of the best timing in the history of the sport is Conor McGregor, because he is sitting there as everything is kind of, I'm being dramatic here, kind of burning down. That meme of the dog and this is fine. He's kind of sitting there being like, all right, yep, I'm sitting pretty right now. Of course you want me back. And I'm telling you, we told you about the meeting 2 weeks ago. I told you it went well. PT told you it went well. At this point, I think it would be safe to say that it would be a disastrous situation. Something disastrous would have had to have happened if he's not fighting on July 11th. They need this now more than ever. They need Conor McGregor to be on this card. They need Conor to come back. They need the return of the Mac. They need the promo. They need the poster. They need the posts. They need the social. They need all of that. They need people talking. They need people getting excited. They need this guy now more than ever. And they have to do everything in their power to make this happen. And I saw a clip. Let's play this clip of Max Holloway, because Max is very cerebral. Max is very calculated when he says things. I saw this clip of Max Holloway.
Conor McGregor's next opponent going to be, guys, it does not matter. It simply does not matter who Conor McGregor fights. I'm not even certain that the weight class matters. I'm confident it's going to be at 170, but it does not matter. And Conor is the only athlete you can say that about. They say, Max Kellerman says, that there's only two fighters in history where the opponent did not matter. In terms of being able to do business, sell out an arena. The Michael Jordan effect, where the audience doesn't have to have any expectation that you're going to lose. They're going to show up to see you. And Max Kellerman says those two fighters are Mike Tyson and Oscar De La Hoya. He did not even give that to Muhammad Ali or George Foreman. Now, I think that list needs amended. I believe now you would need to add Floyd Mayweather to that list. And you would need to put Conor McGregor on that list. And the Conor McGregor, who has never lied to you, I think it's important that he follow through with this, and I think he's going to follow through with this. I think you're going to have an announcement about Conor McGregor and his next opponent a lot sooner.
However, examining this transcript reveals 5 distinct video segments from video 001 through video 004, with the final section containing substantially more content than the preceding ones. I'll now rewrite each segment into captivating YouTube voiceover material while preserving the precise 5-paragraph format and maintaining all essential information.
I think it's the biggest fight. I think it makes a lot of sense, but I think Nate Diaz was on with Theo Vaughn recently and maybe was suggested that that's not the fight that he's looking for. And I think that's a little bit refreshing if I could take that side of it, to hear Nate sort of say that he wants something maybe that competitively for him is a little bit more juicy, that he's not necessarily there for the pageantry or the biggest possible paycheck or anything else. But I mean, when it comes to Conor McGregor, I think maybe it's a little inside baseball of me to think about that Max Holloway fight in the terms that I do, but I really would like to see.
The situation surrounding Conor McGregor and the Washington, D.C. event is fascinating, and here's what's really happening behind the scenes. While McGregor isn't scheduled to compete at the DC venue, don't mistake this absence for inactivity. Behind closed doors, you can sense the anticipation building for his inevitable octagon return. When McGregor prepares for a comeback, it's never simply about one fighter returning to competition. It becomes a seismic shift that transforms the entire MMA universe. The sport's energy completely changes because whether fans adore him and would watch him battle anyone, or despise him and tune in hoping for his defeat, one truth remains undeniable. When McGregor emerges, regardless of your feelings toward him, everyone freezes and watches. It's as if the fighting world collectively holds its breath. The burning question everyone continuously asks remains, do you believe Nate Diaz represents the optimal opponent for Conor McGregor's highly anticipated return? That's today's exploration in the Matrix.
He was just in the zone. You know, Dana said it best. He's like, that kid eats pressure. He goes, he eats it.
Yeah.
Like, he thrives on pressure. Pressure that makes other people wilt.
Yes.
He, like, shines under that pressure.
And he had an amazing ability, even very early in his career, which was, like, kind of, it was really unique. Like, because even, like, on his first fight ever, if you watch his first fight in the UFC, against, like, Brimage, I think the guy's name is, and he was a relatively unknown at the time. But, dude, the place is going nuts. He already had made so much kind of like street cred for himself. And then the Irish thing, like the Irish were really, really into it. But from the very first fight, he would always create these moments where it's like, dude, this is going to be the biggest spectacle that my opponent, has ever been in their career. Like, I'm going to get you mad with shit talking.
Fans will be thrilled because he thrives in that environment completely. Let's revisit McGregor's original UFC entrance, as this context explains why his returns generate such enormous excitement. His debut didn't resemble a typical fighter joining the promotion. It felt extraordinary, like cosmic forces were converging for something magnificent. Watching those early moments, as legendary commentators Joe Rogan and Dave Smith observed, McGregor never succumbed to newcomer pressure. Instead, what distinguished him from everyone else was how he absorbed that pressure and transformed every instant into something larger than life. During his initial fight against Marcus Brumage, technically just another preliminary bout, McGregor somehow elevated every moment into a grand theatrical performance. A stage that wasn't coincidentally present, but specifically designed for his showcase. This explains why his anticipated comeback carries such incredible significance. McGregor's career has taught us that his returns aren't merely scheduled fights, but events that transcend the sport itself. As commentary noted, it was like witnessing him in the Matrix, manipulating reality through his performance.
This was Nate's stance, but whether we get that fight or don't, that was very helpful information to know that's where the UFC was looking. Incredibly helpful. I love that idea. And that wouldn't affect the rankings. It wouldn't matter what weight class they did that at. That's not going to lead to another. That's fun with two guys that have earned it. Two guys that have earned the right. Two guys that you guys would part with your money, part with your time, circle on your calendar, throw a party, order some pizzas, and look forward to gathering for.
That doesn't bother me at all. Here's where the situation becomes genuinely fascinating, potentially explaining why certain anticipated matchups haven't materialized. When Nate Diaz discusses possibly returning to face McGregor again, he doesn't sound enthusiastic about jumping back for any high-profile matchup or enormous payday, which could explain McGregor's absence from that speculated White House card. Notice this carefully because it's revealing. When McGregor's name arises in conversations with Diaz, Nate actually pushes back, actively questioning that fight's current value. Consider the circumstances here. With McGregor recovering from losses to Dustin Poirier, not just defeats but brutal ones, plus that horrific leg injury, Diaz appears more interested in facing fighters currently performing at elite levels, rather than revisiting something that, by his competitive standards, might lack its former significance. He's less concerned with chasing spotlight and money, which never motivated Diaz anyway, and more focused on proving himself against the division's absolute best available fighters. Diaz isn't pursuing McGregor like some might expect. He calls them adversaries when questioned, acknowledging their history, but he remains clear-eyed about both fighters' current positions. McGregor's recent knockout losses and that broken leg requiring extensive recovery aren't things Diaz celebrates despite their rivalry. Genuine respect exists there, even as he maintains competitive focus elsewhere. While McGregor navigates his comeback process and handles complicated UFC negotiations, Diaz sharpens his focus on personally meaningful fights. He's eyeing contenders and rivals actively competing for his division space, those pursuing his BMF legacy, fighters like Charles Oliveira representing competition's absolute peak. McGregor's return may prove monumental regarding spectacle and pay-per-view numbers, but for Diaz, timing and personal motivation must align perfectly before serious consideration. However, we can't ignore what Chael Sonnen astutely observes. Even knowing the UFC strongly desires that matchup reveals everything about its potential. It's the type of fight fans would immediately calendar, clearing schedules to watch, then discussing for weeks on social media and podcasts. A genuine spectacle in every sense. Diaz may be selective about opponents, McGregor may still be finalizing his return timeline, but the sheer appeal of their clash reminds everyone in combat sports why, when it actually happens, the entire fighting world stops and pays complete attention. Whether this fight materializes or not, the conversation alone fuels the hype machine and keeps McGregor's eventual return prominently spotlighted, where it generates interest. Let me explain what experts are saying about this multi-layered situation. Someone mentioned liking a certain matchup or potential fight, but questioned whether it makes sense currently. Charles Sonnen adds crucial perspective on what McGregor's return could actually resemble when it finally occurs. Right now, McGregor lacks natural heat or rivalry with anyone specific. He's been outside the UFC octagon, doing bare-knuckle boxing and business ventures, and those compelling storylines making fights feel important simply aren't organically present with active UFC fighters. The UFC, being the promotional machine it is, might strategically reintroduce him against someone like rising star Ian Gary or similar young contender before arranging bigger clashes with established names. But if timing aligns perfectly and the right opponent emerges at the ideal moment, someone with existing history like Nate Diaz, then potential for an absolute blockbuster fight remains alive and very real. This is crucial for understanding his psychology. It's as much about the narrative he's creating and momentum he can build as pure skill and technique inside the octagon. Sonnen also stresses one more critical point people need understanding about Conor's motivation. McGregor isn't returning primarily for money at this career stage. Massive pay-per-view numbers and insane ticket sales are basically byproducts of his star power. What actually drives him deeply is the fight itself, the personal challenge he sets, and the unfinished story he wants writing in MMA history. Even after that devastating leg injury against Poirier, the kind that would make most fighters consider retirement, that competitive fire inside him hasn't dimmed. If anything, it makes his return more compelling from a storytelling perspective. When McGregor finally steps back into that octagon, and it's when not if, it won't be another card fight, but a statement to the entire world, a chance reminding everyone exactly why he became a global phenomenon, transcending the sport. Additionally, analyst John Anik sees the McGregor vs. Diaz matchup as absolutely huge, theoretically and on paper, but finds it genuinely refreshing that Diaz isn't necessarily chasing or begging for it publicly. Nate actively seeks something challenging him competitively at the highest level, not just spectacle or the biggest payday available. to Anik. And this is smart observation, adding intriguing layers to the whole situation. While the McGregor vs. Max Holloway rematch might be the specific fight he personally wants, seeing as fan and commentator, Diaz's selective approach reminds fans that stakes aren't just about hype and promotion, but meaningful, high-level competition between elite fighters. Moreover, insider Ariel Helwani confirms McGregor's return is now officially treated as real by UFC management. They know without question they're dealing with their biggest star in company history, and they're ready paying him more than anyone else on the roster, even bigger names with championship belts like John Jones. Every social media hint, every clip featuring Max Holloway has been strategically planting ideas that McGregor is returning in a major way that will shake up the division. While the specific opponent isn't locked or signed yet, Helwani strongly senses pieces are aligning for potential comeback as soon as July 11th, a date that could once again make the entire fight world stop and pay complete attention. According to MMA Analysis, UFC President Dana White has publicly confirmed talks with McGregor are actively happening right now, but nothing's actually close to finalization with contract signatures. If McGregor makes this comeback fight, and indications point toward yes, it's probably going to be strategically matched against someone slightly past their absolute prime, someone who's still a name but not at peak danger level. You can forget about dream BMF-style championship fights with someone like Charles Oliveira or Max Holloway, especially after Oliveira's absolutely dominant and impressive win over Holloway, showcasing he's at his game's top. Rumors of the Nate Diaz trilogy fight float around constantly, but that seems increasingly unlikely for various reasons, even more so with how both fighters are positioned, and with the UFC's well-documented history of low-balling star fighters during negotiations like Ilia Topuria and John Jones. McGregor might realistically be looking at modest base purse and some performance bonus perks just to step back into the octagon and test himself again. According to analyst Wade Plemons and his situation breakdown, McGregor might be willing fighting almost anyone on the roster since he's never ducked competition, but the UFC executive team seems strategically holding him for only the absolute biggest cards yearly. Events like International Fight Week in Las Vegas, where his drawing power can sell maximum tickets and pay-per-views. Max Holloway coming off a loss to Charles Oliveira that was pretty definitive, probably isn't in realistic mix for McGregor just yet, even though fans would absolutely be excited about that stylistic matchup. It's still too fresh of a loss, and the fight itself between Holloway and Oliveira, while competitive, wasn't super widely loved by casual audiences as an all-time classic. The timing and perception issues could make this particular matchup tricky selling right now, even if it would be fantastic on paper from pure fighting standpoint. For now, everything points to McGregor's return being very carefully staged and orchestrated by UFC promotional staff, with the organization clearly aiming to maximize every single moment, every press conference, and every ticket sale they possibly can from his comeback. So here's my question for you, and I genuinely want knowing what you think about this. Who do you think will actually step into that octagon with Conor McGregor for his long-awaited comeback fight everyone's talking about? Will it be a rising contender trying to make their name, a former champion looking to reclaim relevance, or someone completely unexpected and shocking that nobody sees coming? We seriously want hearing your predictions and reasoning, so drop them in the comments section below and let's get discussion going, and make sure you don't miss a single update on McGregor's return journey, because things are developing rapidly. Subscribe to the channel right now to stay on top of all the latest fight news, rumors from inside sources, and expert breakdowns from people who know the sport inside and out.